Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Marche, the webinar director at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guests and get started, I do need to do a little bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars, such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. Well, we are thrilled to bring you this educational presentation today. Attendees are muted, but we do encourage you to ask questions using the chat box, and the presenter will address those during or after the webinar today as appropriate. If we are not able to get to your question during the event, we will make sure that someone reaches out to you. All you need to do is put your phone number in the chat, and we will address that after the webinar is over. Once again, please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. We're excited to be here and excited to have you here as well. Well, I'd love to introduce you to today's guests. Our moderator today is Chase Tusshouse, and he's a partner with the Tusshouse Group. Prior to becoming a financial advisor, Chase worked in the manufacturing industry as an engineer for L3Harris and SpaceX. Chase graduated from the University of San Diego with a Bachelor of Arts and Science degrees in Industrial and Systems Engineering. He is a member of the San Diego Alumni Board, the co-chair of USD's Shiley Marcos School of Engineering and Computer Science Alumni Council, and a member of the Oceanside Theater Company Board of Directors. He and his wife, Julia, are parishioners at St. Charles Borromeo in Point Loma and spend their time mentoring local youth. And today's presenter, as maybe some of you have been here before and have seen her speak, Debbie is the nation's leader in motivating students to be peak performers. Her varied background includes running the disciplinary unit at the Calgary Young Offender Center, as a therapeutic foster parent, a homeschooler, a college planner, and an after-school program director. She currently owns Shady Oaks Primary School. She loves to share her incredible knowledge in simple steps that can be implemented immediately, and has experience speaking to students, teachers, corporate America, entrepreneurs, and people who want to be successful at life. And I'm hoping that that's our audience here today. And Debbie, I'm excited to have you present. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share here and turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm just going to get my screen set up and we will get started. Let's go right to here. All right, so we are going to talk about the 6 principles of ethical influence, and this is based on Dr. Robert Cialdini's work. If you're not familiar with Robert Cialdini, I highly encourage you to do so after this presentation. He is a brilliant man. He is a professor at Arizona State University, and what I love about his work is everything is research-based, and he does a whole bunch of studies that are just fascinating to me and figures things out about human persuasion and how we can influence others, which I found very, very interesting. Every summer, I do a camp with my students, and we write a book in a series that we've started called What Every Cool Kid Deserves to Know. This year, our book, which I'm going to show you guys in a minute, is on ethical influence. And we worked through Dr. Cialdini's information. So guys, if my elementary school students can get this, so can you. This is going to be a really fun talk. The book that we did was very interesting because the students listened to the principles and then applied them to a story that they wrote. They then sent their story to Dr. Cialdini, who read it and approved it, and even shared with them some brand new research and gave them the opportunity to include it into their story. So they were just tickled. They had a 1-hour Zoom call with him, and he's been very supportive in marketing the book for us and sort of getting the word out. So it's been a very exciting time here on campus. And what I love about these ethical persuasion techniques is that they are ethical. They allow you to stay within integrity, and they work. And some of them are you're like, oh yeah, I get that. And other ones were very surprising to me. So without further ado, we will get started. So we have some decision triggers, right? Right now in our world, there is so much information that's coming at us that if we don't figure out ways to decipher information and we don't rely on experts to help us, it becomes very overwhelming. So imagine you're at the grocery store and you've got to choose toothpaste. It's so reassuring to know that you can flip the box over and see that it's been approved by the Dental Association. I don't have to go home and look up all the ingredients and try to figure out, is this a good toothpaste for me or not? And so being able to rely on these different principles to ensure that we are making decisions that serve us is really important. So part of what Dr. Cialdini has done is illuminated some of these principles that allow us to really hone in on how we make decisions, which is very helpful in business. So the 6 principles are reciprocity, liking, consensus, authority, consistency, and lastly is scarcity. And so we're going to spend some time on each of these so you can understand them. My goal at the end of this time together is that you have the opportunity, one, to understand what these are and to think of ways to use them in your business. I use all of these in our business, and as we're going through it, I will share with you different ways we've incorporated it, and you're welcome to use the same techniques that we use, or even to come up and share with other ones that you might be recognizing you do and didn't know why it was so effective. And now you have some understanding as to the background for that. So there are practitioners of persuasion, and there's 3 different types that I want to talk about before we get into the 6 areas. So the first is the bungler, or if you're familiar with conflict resolution, that's a lose-lose, where the bungler bungles these. He either doesn't know about these different practices of persuasion or knows about them and does them incorrectly. Dr. Cialdini tells a story about speaking over in Australia to a crowd of people he is teaching his methods to. And he's talking about the bungler and how this individual can really lose a sale, lose a piece of business by bungling the opportunities that are presented to them in life to persuade someone else. And he's looking at his audience, and there's a gentleman in the audience who is visibly turning gray and pale, and he stops his talk to check on this gentleman because he's so concerned about him. And the gentleman's like, oh, I just figured out how I lost one of my longest and best clients. So he goes on to share his story. And this gentleman was working in Sydney and had a small tech company, and their biggest at the time client had a little bit of problem. And so because he really appreciated this client, he sent his 2 top technicians and himself down to Melbourne to address their issues. So they go down there, and it was actually something very simple, and he was able to fix it in a morning. And the CEO of the company invited him and his technicians up to her office to share with them, how pleased she was that not only did they come all the way down to Melbourne, they came quickly, they fixed the problem efficiently, they were so easy to work with. She was just so thankful. And he said to her, no big deal. I could have done this for anybody. And her face started to change. And then he went on to pour salt in the wound and said, in fact, my staff and I love coming to Melbourne because, the nightlife is great here. The restaurants are fantastic. And she just went to stone. They never got another deal from this person again. So what happened? He bungled it. She's trying to thank him, and they were so important to his company, but he kind of dismissed it. And then he dismissed it even more by talking about how that they just like coming to Melbourne, and it had nothing to do with you. We would have done this for anybody, which totally wasn't even the truth, but lost them that client. So we want to be careful not to bungle opportunities that we're presented with. The next is the smuggler, and this is the win-lose. This is someone who knows these techniques, but does not use them with integrity. So imagine you're going to a store to buy a new television, and there's several to choose from, and you meet with the salesperson, and he's telling you that this is the one you need. And let me tell you why I know that, because I have the same one in my home, and these are all the benefits, and this is why I love it. But actually, he doesn't have that television in his home. It's the one that they got a great deal on from the manufacturer. So his commissions is much higher for the next 2 weeks if he sells this particular television. And he's using all of the different persuasion practices to get the consumer to purchase, but he's smuggling. He's not doing it with integrity, and he's not being very ethical. So we want to be careful with smugglers. And the last are the sleuths. These are the people like all of us who are going to learn these 6 different practices and use them with integrity, because I want my clients, as I know you want your clients, to get their needs met with the right products or services that you provide, so that they continue to come back, right? This is not a one and done. We want to make sure that we have ambassadors out in the community that are talking about our practical services and all of the things that we're maybe selling out to our community, so that we have a fine and large reach, and that we have repeat customers. Because, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with gratitude marketing, and I think being able to use your techniques when you do gratitude marketing, which is to really take care of your golden goose, because if you're just going after the eggs, that's a lot of work, right? So for example, at my school, I'm very careful to really thank my parents in ways that they don't expect. So it's not uncommon for them to receive a gift card from me in the mail, which appears to be very random, thanking them for trusting me with their child. And I think those types of things are done on purpose, right? I can market out to what's referred to, if you understand blue ocean strategy, to the red zone, to the cold area, to cold calling, to people that have never heard of me before. And I can do that, but really the best bang for my buck is to nurture the people that have already believed in me. And so using some of these practices will allow you to do that. So let's get started. So the first one is reciprocity. And reciprocity is the giving to others. And you have some rules with this in order for it to work especially well. So in reciprocity, you want to be the first to provide something, a gift, a kind word, a kind act, something along those lines. Because every society teaches that you may not give or not take without giving in return, right? We have terrible names for those, don't we, in our English language? And you don't want to be that person, right? And there's a feeling that you get when someone gives you something, you feel you must reciprocate. And that's something that we want to be able to use in business with integrity, with being ethical, that allows us to give our clients the opportunity to feel that we're the right people to deal with. So you all know about the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you like to be done unto, right? Treat others like you treat yourself. The platinum rule is really when you look at how other people like to be treated, and you treat them the way they want to be treated, not necessarily the way you want to be treated. And if you're familiar with the 5 love languages, which most people are, the platinum rule plays into that very well. So if you understand what your love language is and you're aware of what other people's love languages are, you need to speak to their language. And you can find cues with that. So when you're building reciprocity, you need to be like a sleuth. You need to be a detective. You need to be watching for things that people enjoy and would like to receive, and then be the first to bring it to them. So we've got some examples here, and these are directly from Cialdini's work. One professor at Brigham Young University decided one year to send out holiday greetings to random people. Okay, this was a while ago because he got the names out of the phone books, but he sent them out all over the country. And he was shocked at how many people, these are people he doesn't know, sent him Christmas cards back. That's kind of cool, right? And so that's that whole, oh my goodness, this person sent me a Christmas card. I better respond and reciprocate in the same manner. One of the ways we use this reciprocity rule on campus here is my staff have been trained that when you show up to my school, you will have a drink, you will take a beverage. right? We work really hard at giving you some water, maybe a cup of coffee, some hot tea, whatever it is that you would like to have. We want to make sure that you're having that so we can evoke this rule of reciprocity. So next we have, oh, this is a great study. This is one of my favorites. So when you look at waitresses and waiters, Cialdini's staff went in and they did a couple of things with different wait staff in restaurants. The first was they had the wait staff provide the diner with a mint, which is not uncommon, when they brought you your bill. So there's 4 people sitting at the table, there would be 4 mints. And what they found is with the mints, when they compared that to the level of tips with no mints, it increased by 8%. That's all right. That's not bad for a couple of cent mint, right? When they doubled the mints and gave you 2 mints, it went up to 23%. Okay, but listen to this. It raised up to 68% when the waiter walked over, brought 4 mints for the 4 people and set it down on the bill, walked away, stopped, turned back and said, but for you people, and digs into his apron and pulls out more mints. People went crazy. The tips went through the roof. They were so excited. And all that is reciprocity, right? I gave to you, you give to me, but now I made it very personal because just for this table, you get more mints. And the tips, like I said, went through the roof. So using reciprocity is very helpful. Another example of this is a group of Boy Scouts who were selling tickets to an event that they were having, like a carnival. And apparently Robert Cialdini is a sucker. Like he buys stuff he doesn't even eat. And so this day he's out on campus and the Boy Scouts are there and he's not really interested in going to the carnival. But the next thing the young man says to him, oh, well, if you're not interested in that, perhaps you would be interested in a chocolate bar for $1. So instead of the $5 ticket, he's going to buy the $1. So he does, he buys it. And he gets back to his office and he's like, what just happened? I don't even like chocolate, right? But there was I said no to you. And now I feel like you're just a little boy. I can't not reciprocate. I can't not, you're offering me this. I've got to do something in return. And what he learned was that even the offering, so when there was something offered that he couldn't take care of, he was so happy to be able to say yes. And I want you to make note, there is a moment of power right after somebody tells you no. So Cialdini told no, I don't want to go to this event. Then right then the Boy Scout was on there with probably what he was really trying to sell, which was the chocolate bar. And he's right in there with the chocolate bar and made the sale. So knowing that principle and having something in mind, and sometimes, we might start our negotiation with a top dollar item, but really what we're trying to sell is something a little bit lower. And so I know that's not a new technique for many of you, but just again, I know for me, I forget some of this stuff, right? And I need to watch and learn and listen and review and remind, and then think about how to apply it to my business. So I hope you're doing the same thing. And then lastly, we have some juvenile delinquents, which I'm very familiar with from my background. And they use the very similar principle to the Boy Scouts. So they went up to random people on the street and asked them kind of a big request. And they asked them if they would be willing to take a group of juvenile delinquents and mentor them. And I know, Chase, you would be on it in a heartbeat because you're a mentor from heart, that they asked them if they would take a group of these juvenile delinquents to the zoo for a day. And most people said no. So that was the first part of the experiment. The second part of the experiment was they went and said, we are looking for mentors. It's a 2-year commitment, 3 hours a week, to work with these young juvenile delinquents and help turn their life around. And can we count on you for your support? And everyone, except for like 3%, said no. Well, if you can't do that, would you be willing to escort a group to the zoo for a day? All of a sudden, 76% said, the day, a zoo, I could do that. I can't do 2 years, 3 hours a week, but I can do a 1-day trip to the zoo. So that's reciprocity. So I want you to keep those principles of persuasion in mind, and we're going to move on to the next one.
So Debbie, we've got
oh, great.
Some reciprocity there. So you gave us a few really good examples. And, one thing you'd mentioned was kind of this you have to sometimes go back and look and relearn and kind of watch, right? But as someone who is a teacher and you're working with young children, do you find that do children kind of naturally exhibit this, or is this something that's kind of learned in the household? Like more, is it human nature, or is it something that that they're kind of picking up from others?
That's a really good question, Chase. And I would say from my experience working with children, it is not innate. I think that we do a lot of teaching on campus for social emotional intelligence and really making children aware of that at a very young age, and so that it becomes habitual. And I think these principles of persuasion are very much out there, but I don't think we're very aware. And so I don't think it's innate. I think it is learned behavior, in that you must be aware of it to implement it. I don't know that reciprocity necessarily is something that children are born with. And if you watch them on the playground, sometimes there's anything but reciprocity.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
We do a lot of conflict resolution
Yeah.
instruction on our playground.
Yeah. Well, I
That's
guess,
a great question.
to follow up on that, how would a parent maybe show that or use reciprocity in a relationship with their child?
That's a great question. So I know for me, when my daughter was taking karate, I taught her that when I took her to her dojo, that she needed to say thank you to me for driving her. And I said, the minute you stop thanking me, I stop driving. And now that was to teach reciprocity, but it was also for her to understand, when you have appreciation, you have joy. When you have joy, you're happy. I'm not unwilling to drive you, but you need to appreciate the drive. So I think, children learn that when you go to a birthday party, what do? Right? You bring a gift, and then you have a party and you get to leave with a loot bag. So there is some of this exchange back and forth, but I do think it's something that parents need to teach. If you've got maybe a cousin coming over for the weekend, wouldn't it be nice if we were to make a special dessert, or maybe you could make a little gift for your cousin, so when they come, they feel welcomed. We did a lot of that when we were therapeutic foster parents, of really making sure that our foster girls that came to live with us felt welcome right from the beginning. And it just elevated the ability for the relationship to solidify quickly, so they could really start to get on to their healing or whatever it is that they needed to work on when they were with us. So hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome. So the second one is liking, and being likable is really, really important in building relationship. And if we're going to have clients and people that we service, there needs to be a likable, they need to like us, right? Because people that we like, we trust. And it's important that you're working at this. They've done some studies over the past, many, many studies. The one that I read about recently talked about two groups, and it was a negotiation class. And the first group was told, hey, get right down to business. I want you to get this deal done. Just get in there, get it done. The second group was told, just take your time, get to know the person you're working with, come up with some similarities, maybe throw them a couple of compliments. So the first group closed, they came to a negotiation that both parties were satisfied with 57% of the time. The second group had an overwhelming 94% where both parties felt they walked away getting their needs met, and that the negotiation went incredibly well. And I think taking that time, we know this in business, to really get to know people, which allows you to distinctly differentiate yourself from your competition. So putting that time in to determine similarities. We end each day here on campus with a compliment circle, because it's important to me that my students have a culture where they feel safe and they feel welcomed, and others recognize their value and their greatness. And being aware of that at a young age is something that I think will really serve them in business as they get older. But even us old dogs can learn that new trick. And I think making sure that your compliments are sincere and that you build them using irrefutable evidence will allow you to ensure that they land. Because all of us, think about walking onto that used car lot, right? We're a little skeptical when we meet somebody for the first time and they're throwing out compliments left, right. If they land, if it's truly something that you feel is being given to you sincerely, oh my gosh, they've done studies that tell us, even if it's not true, even if you're complimented and you don't believe it, we still like the person. We still feel better. We're like so funny as humans. Being able to find someone to advocate for you and with you, someone who believes in the same causes as you, is a great place to connect. And then you gain a higher level of cooperation in those situations. And you tend to, I know for me, if I like you, I'll do just about anything for you, right? And I think a lot of us feel the same way. So this is a great reminder. I know most of us in business understand the importance of being likable, but I think it's really taking the time. I know for me, I write a lot of handwritten thank you notes because none of my competition does. So it's awesome, right? And it takes very little time, but it has so much meaning. And it has that nugget of irrefutable evidence. And I just want to spend a little bit of time on that, because if you're not familiar with that term, it really is talking about something that is not necessarily your opinion, right? So when you're giving a compliment that is based in irrefutable evidence, the person doesn't feel that it's anything but the truth, because you're speaking to what is obvious. It's not anything that you've decided. You haven't decided that that color looks good on that person. You're simply commenting that the cut is very flattering, or that maybe you've noticed someone being very kind to someone else. You said, I just noticed you pay for that woman's coffee. That was so kind of you. Well, that's not even your opinion. You just watch the woman pay for someone else's coffee, and you're simply commenting on it and recognizing it. So the receiver of that information feels that it's very sincere, as it is. So just be able to use liking to build that relationship, to solidify the opportunity that you have to close the sale. Next, we have consensus. And this is really about social proof. And I was able to use this in my business when I was doing college planning. The way we received our clients, for the most part, was we did 90-minute presentations that were complimentary, typically at libraries or schools, and people would come after they had registered to listen to me talk about some strategies that you could use to get your child ready to go to college and to save some money along the way. And once you registered, my staff would tell me the tally. So for example, the 54 people had registered. They would say, Debbie, we're going to set out the chairs. And I would say, great, I'd like you to set out 44 chairs. They're like, but 54 have registered. I said, I'm quite aware of that. I'd like you to set out 44 chairs. Because here's what happens. When you arrive and you're looking for somewhere to sit and all the chairs are taken, what does that do to you? What do you think? Oh my gosh, I'm in the right room, because there's social proof. All these other people I hear, and look, they're so busy, they've got to go in the back closet to get me a chair. This is going to be so good, right? And that social proof, because we all look for it. What's everybody else doing, you know? So when we look at teen smokers, if your friends smoke, the increase that you're going to smoke goes up considerably. If you are a delinquent, your chances of smoking goes up considerably. If your parents smoke, it goes up considerably. But if two of your friends smoke, there's 1,000% increase in the likelihood that you will smoke. And so when we look at consensus and we look at social proof, I'm going to ask you right now to do a really quick experiment or thinking about who are the 5 people that you spend your time with. Because if they're not the people that are liking you and bringing you along and holding you accountable and promoting you and really your best fans, you may want to rethink who you're spending time with, because we know from science that you're affected, deeply affected by those that you spend time with because of this consensus rule. So just take some time to think about it. So here's our numbers: 14% increase in trouble with the law, 14% increase if depressed, if both parents smoke. But if 2 or more of your friends smoke, 1,000% increase in the chances that you will smoke as a teenager. So I'm sure you have your list done now. And if you're not happy with who's on your list, this is a great opportunity for you to look for maybe a different set of friends. I like to have a board of directors, some people call it a mastermind group, that I meet with on a monthly basis that are not necessarily in my industry. I like to really vary it up, and I've actually stolen from other industries ideas that are not typically done in education to allow us to really progressively move forward in our industry. And I think that there's some really great things in that. So look around, who are you getting your social proof from? And are you dipping into the right pond? That's really what I want to ask. So let's look at authority. So when we are consumers of information or products, there's some uncertainty, especially go back to my example about the toothpaste, right? I'm not a dentist. I'm not an expert on toothpaste, but I know that there's authorities that I can trust. People in uniform are authorities. There's been studies that show that we're more apt to trust someone in a uniform, to provide them money to make a phone call or to fill their parking meter because of the uniform, right? So some things to look at are a credible authority has knowledge, expertise, and is very trustworthy. So when we're looking at authority, people follow those who they believe in. And they did a study with physical therapists, and they found that if the physical therapist displayed their credentials on the wall in the waiting room, when they went back and asked them to do their exercises, they had an increase in the follow through by their clients. So really, and we see that, right? People have their diplomas on their walls. Every time you go into a doctor's office, he's displayed all of his credentials. There's a reason for that. And you need to be able to use authority to assert that you are the right person, that they're here because you know what you're talking about. And I think that that really helps for others to know who to trust. And with social media now, we have so many opportunities to be the authority, to get out there and to blog, do your video posting, make sure people see you as someone who knows what they're talking about and who has vast knowledge. And when you look at people like Forbes, how they determine who are the most influential, they look at many different things, right? Not only are you an authority in this area, but are you an authority in several other areas? And are you wealthy? And do you what do you bring to the table to assert your authority to allow you to be influential? So if you have authority, this is not the time to be shy about it. Also, you want to make sure that if you are someone with authority, that you allow others to speak to that authority for you. Because the minute you walk in to meet somebody, you've lost that opportunity. So it's not uncommon in Asia for a letter of introduction to be sent to someone before you actually do business with them. Now, we don't do that in North America, but we could do other things that would assert your authority. It could be something as easy as assuming you running a real estate agent office, and the phone comes in and your receptionist is instructed to answer like this. So the person calling is interested in renting. So the receptionist says, "Let me get Chase for you. Chase is our expert. He's been with our firm for 20 years. He has the highest close rate on rental properties. He knows everyone here. I'm going to put you through to Chase." Person's like, "Yes, I'm getting the best one," right? Next person calls in, they're going to buy. Instead, they're going to talk to Debbie because Debbie's been with the company 25 years and her clothing. So there's authority information being passed in a very innocent way. And it doesn't even matter. We're so funny as humans. It doesn't even matter if I'm promoting Chase and people know that Chase and I are partners. Doesn't matter. It still works. And so we use it here on our campus. So when people call and they're asking questions about the school or questions about my background or anything like that, my assistant Brandy will let them know, well, Debbie's a published author and she's done a couple of TED Talks, and we've scripted that into a very easy flowing way to make sure that they understand you're not just getting any school owner, you're getting Debbie Elder, right? There's a way to use your authority and your influence that allows the consumer to relax and listen to what you have to say. It's not a slam dunk. If someone comes to my school and their student presents with maybe disabilities or learning differences that we can't handle, I need to be an authority enough on the area schools to be able to send them to the next place. So it doesn't mean you take whoever shows up, but it does allow you to be a person of information who can be helpful in your community. And I think that's really important in whatever profession that you're invested in. Consistency.
So Debbie,
yes.
Debbie, quick question. Yeah. So someone wrote in here, when you talk about authority, you don't want to seem like overbearing or egotistical, etc. Obviously, you describe that in having someone else kind of promote you, right? Is there a way to do that on your own? Like if you don't have a partner, you don't maybe have a way to show that authority through kind of a secondary avenue, but if it's going to come from you, is there a way to do that?
Yes, that's a great question. So different ways you can do that. So it's not uncommon for people to send a letter or email of introduction, right? So I get introduced to people over email a lot, right? Where you do that virtual introduction and then the person said, I'll leave it to the two of you. It's not uncommon for me to take a few minutes and send them something that describes not my whole bio, but just a quick overview of who I am based on what I know they're looking for. So for example, tonight, I'm going to go meet with a woman who runs Code Ninjas. She has 3 in the area. Well, obviously we have some connection. I have a school that services the same age group. So it's beneficial that she has a really clear understanding of what my school does, so she can be an ambassador out in the community for me and send me students, and that I understand what she does enough that I could either bring it on campus to teach my students, or I can share with my kiddos, hey, I went and met with this woman. I think you guys should go and meet with her and look at different ways to code. They make it really fun. And so I've put some time into that relationship to ensure that she's equipped to speak of me and my school accurately and to be a true ambassador in the community. And I think people really enjoy that and they respect it. And it's not uncommon for them to reciprocate with information about themselves. So that's a great way to do it, especially if you feel like you don't have anyone else. What you don't want to do is show up for the sale and try and do it then. You've lost your window. This is something that needs to be done before you walk into their office to have that discussion. So that's the one caveat.
I think that's good advice too, because then, you know, it kind of sets the kind of the expectation a little bit too, or that like, hey, here's the scope, or here's, you know, here's the expertise I'm coming from. So it doesn't seem very like, hey, look at me and this is all the great stuff about me, sort of.
Well, and I know when I'm doing business, the more I can find out, and if you're going to provide it with me and I don't have to go search you on LinkedIn or look at your Facebook page or track you down on Instagram, I might verify, but it's really nice that you've saved me the step. So, and I think it's also not done very often, which is unfortunate because people deserve to know how awesome we are. And the way you do that is by sharing your information with them so that they can trust in that.
That's great. Thanks, Debbie.
You're welcome. So consistency is important. This is another action step. So people live up to what they write down. If you say you support a certain cause, then if you say that out loud, we're going to take action to support that. We want to appear to be consistent. Well, we can use that in business. So we're looking for active commitment, that it's public, and then it's voluntary. So how can we use this? So for example, what they have found in restaurants, there was a big problem. I'm sure there still is in many restaurants where people make reservations and then no show. Well, that's really expensive for the restaurateur who's now lost the opportunity to provide food for you and has kept your table and you haven't showed up and they've turned people away. And so several years ago, and I don't know if any of you experienced this, but when you used to call to make a reservation for a very short period of time, they wanted you to leave a deposit of $20 that would go towards your meal to hold your table. And if you didn't show up, they charged your card. Well, people hated that. So that stopped really quickly. But one of the restaurateurs out of Chicago changed the script a little bit with the gals that were taking the reservations. And instead of saying, if you change your mind or you're unable to come, will you let us know? They asked the question and got a verbal response from the person making the reservation, a commitment that they in fact would call and let her know if something changed. And they had them say those words. And they had very little no-shows after that. The other thing that they're seeing is in the medical field, it's not uncommon in past practices for the receptionist to write out your next appointment card and hand it to you. In a study that Robert Cialdini did with his team, they reversed that. And instead, the receptionist handed you a pen and the note card, and you filled out the next time you were going to show up and what the time was. So there's commitment because you've made it public, it's voluntary, and you are willing to make that commitment. You can also use this, and they did a great, it was an experiment. This was for reals, where they were wanting people to be careful in neighborhoods. And they had two neighborhoods side by side that they were working with. The first neighborhood, they went in and asked them if they would display, and they were quite large, wooden, not very attractive signs, if they would put that on their front lawn, just with a drive safely. And about 8% of the people they talked to agreed to put this big lawn sign on their front yard. The neighborhood next to it, they handled a little bit differently. So they went out 10 days prior and knocked on people's doors and asked them if they would display this very small drive safely sticker on their front window. So most people did. They didn't feel that was intrusive, so they put that up there. And then 10 days later, they went back to places that had those stickers and asked them if they would put out this big yard sign. Well, they've already been committed. They've already publicly stated that driving safely is important to them. And so the rate of people saying yes to putting these large signs in their yard went through the roof. It was very, very popular, and they were willing to put this big, not very attractive sign because they'd already said yes to a smaller commitment, and they want to be consistent with their word. So that's something else that you can apply to your business that can be very helpful in getting people. So again, you're asking for something very small and then asking for something maybe a little bit bigger because they've already agreed to take steps. So for example, at my school, I mentioned we run summer camps. It's not uncommon for me to do free educational seminars, and I can include all of these principles of persuasion when they're sitting at my free event, getting awesome content and snacks and beverages. They're going to listen to me talk about my school. They're going to be willing to take brochures and to pass them out to their friends and talk about what we do here at Shady Oak at the ball game when they're sitting in the bleachers watching their kid play baseball. So there's ways to use this that will allow you to serve. I'm giving really good information to these people, but also allow them to reciprocate and to be consistent, because if they feel that it's important enough to come and get educational training, that tells me they also feel a good education is important for their child. So there's ways to sort of link these that allow you to extend your reach for very little, if any, money. So we're going to look at scarcity.
Oh,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
That's
so
right.
We had a question that actually was something I had been kind of considering because you had made the comment about writing down a reminder, like physically writing it down. And obviously we live in a very virtual world, but what is that? Can you, like, if you were to set a reminder in your phone or put it on a calendar or an email, does that work in the same sort of context as writing it down physically?
No, it's not as good, right? So if you look at, I have my students keep goals and they rewrite their goals. They'll ask me, can I just type it on my computer? I'm like, no, you have to handwrite it. There's something about it traveling from your brain and out your hand physically that makes it much more sticky, right? The learning is sticky, the commitment is more sticky. Now you can use all your devices if you like, but it's stickier. You get more commitment, more bang for your buck if they will actually handwrite it. There's something, it's a higher level of commitment.
That's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. The next principle is scarcity. So back in 2003, British Airways currently in 2003 was offering 2 flights on the Concorde from London to New York daily. But because it was no longer very economical, British Airways decided to drop one of those flights. Now, it's the same Concorde airplane. It's going the same place. They didn't drop the fare any. It was the same price, but all of a sudden they're booked. Everybody wants to fly on the Concorde from London to New York. And all that happened is they removed one of the flights. Same thing happened years ago with the Oldsmobile. Because it wasn't a very good car, they decided to take it off the market. The minute they took it off the market, everybody wanted to buy an Oldsmobile and their sales went through the roof. So we know that scarcity sells, right? And we use it in advertising all the time, right? Limited space, or deals only going to be for the next 3 hours, or get in while there's still room. Scarcity can also work in business in so many different ways if you're using it correctly, right? So scarcity is also an action. It's a call to action. You're getting people to move quickly to maybe buy your product or sign up for your course or invest in maybe your investments that you're offering them. And so using scarcity can be very can be very advantageous. I know when I was doing college planning, we used the rule of scarcity. If you came in and met with me for your complimentary 1-hour session and made the decision to hire me within 24 hours, you saved, I think it was $500 off the total price of hiring me. If you took longer than that, you could still hire me, but there was no discount. And then my partner and myself at the time went through the DISC, which is a personality behavioral style. And we went through and we're in an elevator going up to the 11th floor in Houston, and we're looking at our results. And I look over his shoulder, I'm like, hey, we're the same. One of us is redundant. We are exactly the same person here. And we were both Ds. We both are Ds. We're drivers. We're action orientated. We like to make decisions quickly. Yeah, we're like, if it's not done right now, it's like too late. Well, most of the population are not Ds. They are S's. They like to do their research. They like to just slow their roll a little bit and see if this is really what they want to do. They want some time to think about it. So when we determined that, we changed our time. We gave people 72 hours, 3 days to make a decision to get the discount, because all we were getting were Ds like us, and we were missing a sizable part of the population. So if you're going to evoke the principle of scarcity, do your homework. Make sure you're not making it too scarce. The other thing is we know is people are not motivated. Well, they are, but they're not as motivated by what they have as they are about what they're going to lose. People don't like to lose. They don't like to lose opportunity, right? So if you are, there was an example given, and I'm sure most of you have your clothes on them in your bedroom, that exercise machine that I've just lost the name of right now, but a woman that put that together changed, we've all called those infomercial, right? And if you call and just wait and we'll get to you eventually, but she changed the call to action to, if you call and the line is busy, okay, this was several years ago, please call back. Right? In other words, there's so many people, and if you don't hurry up, you're going to miss out. You're not going to get your exercise machine that we all know we buy, and then we put our clothing on it in our bedroom. We never use it to actually exercise on. But by just changing those words from operators are standing by to, if you get a busy signal, please call back. Just think, what's the visual? They're filing their nails. It's not very busy. Nobody's really interested. There's tons in the storeroom. Don't worry, there's no hurry. They're just waiting here for you, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I may not get through. I better call right away and keep calling. Very, very easy to sort of change the mindset to get people to take action, and being able to use this in your point of business to allow your consumers to take action, to make a move so that you can better serve them. We talked about, or I mentioned actually, some moments of power. So there's a moment of power right after thank you. There's a moment of power right after no. And there's a moment of power after you mention a weakness. So oftentimes, if you're in a negotiation, or you're trying to stand out from your competition, it's not a bad strategy to mention a weakness. So you think about, I think it's Avis, there's a car dealership that's like, we're number 2. We're like, well, it's all right. It's okay to be number 2, or, L'Oreal, because I'm worth it. There's ways to use a weakness to assert yourself as someone who's trustworthy and honest, but is also very likable. So it kind of uses all of these techniques together. So just be thinking about different ways that you can present your business character to the community that you serve in ways that implement these different principles. I think it'll really skyrocket your business. So research, yes.
Do you mind reviewing those moments of power again?
Of course.
I thought that was really, really interesting. I actually personally was trying to take notes on that, so that would be great. I'm sure a few others might have that same interest as well.
Yes, so you have a moment of power right after someone tells you thank you, right after someone tells you no, and right after you've mentioned a weakness. So, when they say thank you, you've got that reciprocity going on. When they tell you no, you have that need to be likable, to not want to let you down. It's just, gosh, I told this little Boy Scout no. Now, of course, I'm going to buy a chocolate bar or 4, right? How can I say no to this sweet young child? Or I have many students here who are Girl Scouts. I don't eat dessert. I don't eat cookies, but I buy a lot of Girl Scout cookies because how do you not, right? So my son-in-laws are very thankful. But when we move on to scarcity,
Great.
research confirms that we're more motivated again by what we lose than what we will gain. So educate your prospects, and exclusive information is very, very valuable. So if you're able to share, and there was a company coming out of Venezuela that was a meat producer, and they did a lot of business in North America, and they were able to share with a couple of their big suppliers that there was going to be a shortage coming up because of weather patterns had changed, and the cows weren't getting enough to eat. They had this all tracked, and they shared that information, and people that were purchasing from them purchased in bulk and found out that that information was true. And so they not only were able to keep up the demand to their restaurants, but they were also able to sort of save face with the people that they had to sell to. So that information was very, very valuable because it was exclusive. Not everyone got it. So scarcity doesn't have to just be something tangible. It could be information or expertise that you have that you're willing to share in a limited basis. So don't think that you have to think small with these. Really think outside the box. And my challenge to each of you that are listening to this is to really fine tooth comb your business and make sure that you're actually using these principles to the best of your ability. And don't be afraid to, get a hold of me and we'll brainstorm and come up with some ideas, or talk to some colleagues, or maybe your mastermind group or your board of directors. And it's always helpful to me to have people come look at my business who don't know my business to help me work out these different strategies, because I just see trees, right? They help me see my forest for maybe the way it looks on the outside. So getting people to come in and help you look at your business and do a little bit of reflection on it. We actually teach our students the power of reflection. They have a reflection journal that they write in at the end of each day that talks about what worked for them that day, what didn't work. I have them do that because so many of us in this fast-paced world don't. We just keep going forward and thinking, more is better. Well, maybe not. Just slow down, take a look at your business. Are you implementing these? Make a decision right now to start. And maybe you're going to start with one of these principles and figure out how to use that and track it, right? You have to be able to measure it to see if it's actually getting you the results that you want and that you need, and then go on to the next one. But really looking at, and these are tried and true. This is human behavior. This is not, it may work, it will work. And so why not, right? So the last thing I wanted to share with you, and this is not one of the principles, this is just information that will help you to remember that there is a video on YouTube that you can look up, and it's the vacuum law of prosperity. What we know from nature is it abhors a vacuum. So think about, well, I'm Canadian, you go out and walk in the snow, and the wind blows, what does it do? It fills in your footprints. The same thing on the beach for all you Southerners, right? You walk, what does the water do? It comes in, it fills in your footprints. So what are some things in your business practice right now that you're doing that maybe you need to release to let some of these good 6 practices come in, right? Is there things that you are not allowing the good to come in because you're holding on to maybe old practices, or maybe things that people did in your business before you bought it from them? I'll share with you, when I purchased the school 8 years ago, I sat down with my receptionist or my assistant who had been with the previous owner, and we went through all of the routines and the structures and the policies and the practices, and I had her explain to me why we did them so that I could have confidence knowing it was something to continue doing. And I'll tell you, several of them I didn't continue with. She couldn't articulate to me the why. So I released them and I implemented my own. And there's a great story that I'm sure many of you have heard about the woman who cuts off the end of her roast, right? It's the same thing. She does it because that's what her mother did, and that's what her mother's mother did. And they find out they did it because her grandmother's oven was small, right? there's no reason to continue that practice when you have this huge oven. You don't need to cut the ends off your roast. So I really encourage you to do what my students do on a daily basis, which is to take some time. Your business deserves it, your clients deserve it, you deserve it, to really reflect on what's working. What am I holding on to? Practices, maybe it's an old marketing campaign that you just got lazy and didn't decide you're going to freshen up. Maybe it's some of your brochures or what you're using in social media. I don't know. But what could you release so that nature's vacuum could come in with something better for you? Chase, are there any questions before we wrap up? I think we're just got a few minutes left.
We do have a couple questions coming in here. So let's start with this one. So when we talk about liking, so this question reads, what if you're working with a person who you want to influence and you don't really like them? I know you wouldn't want to fake that. So that's a, interesting question there, but any advice to that?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm old. I've been doing this a long time. And I made the decision probably 20 years ago. If I don't like you, I'm not working with you. Life's too short. There's so many other people out there. And now I will say that I have done business with people who I didn't like as much as others. And I've really worked hard to find nuggets of their personality that I can latch onto, right? Sometimes it's all about what we're looking for to focus on. And so if this is someone that you need to do business with, sometimes people are unlikable because they have some other stuff going on in their world. Sometimes it's, giving them the benefit of the doubt or allowing them, maybe you take them out to lunch and you see them in a different environment than what you've been witnessing them. So if this is something that's really important, you can maybe investigate a little bit further on how you could be likable. But I don't know that, I don't know. I like I said, I'm old. And if I don't like you, I'm probably not going to do business with you.
Yeah, I that's a really good point. I mean, like you kind of are attracted to other people that are likable and you have commonalities with. So, at that point, you might decide, all right, it's best to spend efforts elsewhere. And then one other question came in here. So when you said that the brain looks for the first satisfactory solution to the problem, are you saying that ethical influence acts on that? Or could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we do. We look at answers to problems because we have so much information coming in all the time. And when you're allowed to develop these 6 principles and you can provide this to your consumer, you help them to make the logical choice that's best for them. And I think that's really important. We have, as professionals, an obligation, I feel, to present the information to our clients in an easy way that can be absorbed. And so anything you can do to help them with their indecisiveness is really valuable. And being able to be clear in your campaigns and your messaging and your branding so that they can, without any foreboding, make decisions to do business with you is, I think, very, very strategic and a very smart thing to do. There is a lot of decisions that we have to make every day, and people do rely on experts. So be their expert.
Very good. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
I know we're kind of coming up on time here, Marche. Are we have time for one more question, or is that?
Yeah, we can go ahead and I think there's that question that came in about kind of this current issues with low staffing and supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So when referring to scarcity and you kind of, you hear about just in Long Beach that there's now 90 some tankers out there with all these goods and everything. And you look at kind of the low staffing and these supply chain issues, how does it relate to the principle of sharing that scarcity, I guess, with clients, and just, I talk to my own friends and it's like, well, you hear about that and all of a sudden they're running out, to Costco to go stock up on paper towels and toilet paper again. Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, is that not like the perfect example of scarcity? But yeah, so any thoughts around that, especially like, then talking with clients now and relating those issues?
So again, if you have exclusive information that you can share, if so for example, we pull names for Christmas as our family has grown. And my youngest daughter said, hey, we better do this sooner this year because of supply chain issues, right? So that we are not faced with scarcity, so that we can figure out what we want to buy it and actually receive it. So I think using that in your business, if it's truly going on, scarcity is a principle that moves people to take action. Now, if you're going to go for the short-term gain and kind of make it up and then get found out that it really isn't a scarcity and that your stuff wasn't on that tanker, that's going to cost you business in the long haul and your reputation. But if it's something that you can share with your exclusive clients, hey, I just want to let you know, as of January, this is no longer going to be available. I've been able to secure 300. I'm reaching out to you as one of my top consumers and someone who I really value as a customer. And I want to let you know that this is what I have. There's 300 of them. Let me know if I can set you up with one. That's a great way to use the scarcity principle.
It's a great point. Yeah. Debbie, I mean, just going through this, I'm so happy to partner with you on this because I was probably taking as many notes as I could as well. I thought this was fantastic. And I appreciate this presentation, and it, applies to, I think, business, personal. I mean, there's so many applications to this. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Chase. This was great to work with you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Folks, we're just about at the end of our time. I want to thank both Debbie and Chase for being here today and for the organizations that have made this possible. Thank you to our attendees. Look for an email soon with a replay to this event, and you're welcome to share that replay with your friends and family. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone that we introduce them to. All you have to do is go to advicechaser.com and click on the link to find an advisor. Once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming. We will see you at another webinar soon. Goodbye, everyone.